This is going to be like my dad, but I'm excited for a collab. All right. Enough. Hey.
President, United States. Undergrad.
Oh, this is the show for 50.
Like, I have to finish. Here's where I am. I found what I two times C. And I'm like, perfect.
Test. I call this meeting to order at 7:09 p.m. And we're gonna wait like 2 minutes for Adam.
Yes. Good plan. Sorry.
I call the meeting to order at 7:08 p.m. Sorry, give me a second. Sorry.
I'm just.
Okay, we'll get started. We're gonna start with the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Nico.
Hello, can I scratch USA/BOD funding, please?
Bethany, followed by Kiara, followed by Alicia.
Hello, can we please strike capital contingency allocations, please?
Can I please strike SWC programming fund allocations?
Can I please strike ARC allocations? And can I add a couple resolutions? The first one being a resolution of no confidence against Chancellor Julio Frank. I move to add this to the agenda, this resolution to the agenda.
I don't know if it's a good idea to add resolutions last second without the students having seen it. Sorry, I'm all out of breath.
It is allowed.
It is allowed, but I don't know if it's a good idea given that students haven't seen any of the resolution. Neither have we, and we're gonna have to vote very last second on it.
I move to add a resolution of no confidence against Chancellor Julio Frank.
Any seconds?
Second.
Alicia motions, Mona seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. Sorry, Robbie, did you vote against? Let's read. Sorry, all those against, please raise your hands. Sorry. Please lower your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 4 to 6 to 1 vote, that does not pass.
I have one more.
amendment?
Mhm.
Go ahead.
I move to add a resolution calling for UCLA to become a sanctuary campus.
Same thing. I don't know if it's a good idea for us to add things to the agenda last minute.
This is something we worked on with ideas.
I get that. I get that. I bet it's a really good resolution, but I think it's just best practice for things to be on the agenda
Okay,
beforehand.
I can still motion to do
You
it.
can motion. Go
I
ahead.
move to add a resolution calling for UCLA to become a sanctuary campus.
Second.
Alicia motions. Mona seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 12 to 0 vote, that is added to the agenda. Are there any more amendments to the agenda? Mona?
Can I motion to add a resolution calling for the removal of all Coca-Cola licensed products on ACLA to the agenda, please?
From ASUCLA?
I second.
Seconds. Was that you, Alicia? Mona motions, Alicia seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hand. Oh, sorry. Please raise your hands again. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With an 11 to 0 vote, that is approved. Mona?
Can I add another resolution to the agenda called a resolution calling upon the Associated Students of UCLA to stop all cooperation with local, state, municipal, and federal law enforcement agencies, please?
I second.
Mona motions, Alicia seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. Sorry, all against. Sorry, I'm used to going through it quickly. All against, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please, all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 4 to 5 to 1 vote, that is not approved. Are there any more amendments to the agenda? Carolyn? Those are consent items, right? Okay. Are there any more amendments to the agenda?
Sorry, Adam, we didn't hear that. I think Carolyn's. We didn't hear
Sorry,
it.
I
Sorry.
didn't put that in the mic. Yeah, so I was going to add CS Transpo allocations, and I believe it's a consent item.
Are there any more amendments to the agenda?
Can I add on a discussion to the future of USAC, please?
Into new business? Yeah.
Yes.
Any more amendments to the agenda? Tommy?
Yeah, motion to add, sorry, one sec. Motion to add a resolution against student conduct charges brought forth on students arrested in the pro-Palestine protests to the agenda.
Second, please. Tommy motions, Tamim seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With an 11 to 0 vote, that is approved.
And then I have one more. And then motion to add a resolution of no confidence in Steve Lurie as Associate Vice Chancellor for Campus and Community Safety to the agenda.
I second.
Tommy motions, Alicia seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 4 to 5 to 2 vote, that is not approved. Any more amendments? Seeing none, can we get a motion to approve the agenda? Happy?
I move to approve the USAC agenda for Tuesday, February 4th, 2025.
I second.
Sorry, were all the resolutions that were approved added to the agenda? Was it just the one?
2 of them are. Do you have the links, Josh? Do you have the links?
Give him a second.
Let's wait for the final agenda to be there so we can approve it.
I have one more amendment.
Go ahead.
I move to add a resolution to the agenda, which is sponsored by ASA and PISA, titled "The Resolution Demanding the Fowler Museum Repatriate All Stolen Ancestors and Belongings," and for UCLA administration to reinstate the NAGPRA Compliance Committee.
Second.
Elisa motions, Mona seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With an 11 to 0 vote, that is approved. Yes, I'm just waiting for Josh to finish updating it. I think there's one more, the Fowler Museum one. Oh yeah, my bad. I think that's it. With that being said, can we get a motion, please?
Alicia asked for a discussion item. I think that's not on there.
Do we have to vote on
That's a
this?
separate thing?
No, it just needs to be added to the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you?
All right, I move to approve the February 4th, 2025 USAC agenda.
I second.
Have you motions, Robbie seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 10 to 0 vote, that is approved. Now we're going to move on to minutes. Do we have any minutes to approve? January 28th, are there any objections to approving those? Seeing none, those are approved. And we're going to move into public comment. For everyone that's here with us for public comments, just a reminder for everyone, you have 2 minutes to speak once out of a total of 30 minutes of allocated time. Please use respectful and inclusive language. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom from accountability. Yeah, just please be respectful. With that being said, is there anyone here that's here for public comment? Leila, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Leila Salam. I'm the chapter chair of CalPERG here at UCLA. We're a student activist group with chapters across the state, and we have over 25,000 members. Right now, we're running our pledge drive, where we're signing up new members in support of our Protect Our Oceans campaign. Who fund us through a $10 quarterly activity fee, which gives us the resources we need to keep doing our work, protecting the environment.
Sorry, 1 second. Sorry. Okay, thanks. You can continue. Sorry. How about now? I think it should be good. You can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, our goal is to sign up 800 members this quarter, and right now we're on track for that. Among them is Charlie from Good Morning UCLA. So if you want to check that out, you should see his Instagram tomorrow for our video together. But yeah, our pledge drive is ending this week. And coming out of that, we're going to continue our campaign work, like with our hunger and homelessness / fire relief campaign. I just talked with Carolyn about collaborating with CSC next week for one of their Brew and Relief Initiative events. But yeah, please reach out to us if you're interested in collaborating on anything in the future. And yeah, that's my update. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Is anyone else here in person for public comments? Go ahead.
I was here like last week, but thank you guys like so much, like Adam, Josh, Jonathan, for everything you guys did. You know, we got it done. You know, love you guys. Yeah, honestly, big USAC win. let's go. And yeah, so like honestly, like thank you guys so much again, and like good luck.
Pal? Is anyone else here for public comment? Seeing none, I close public comment at 7:23 p.m. and we're going to move on to funding, starting with contingency.
Hello, this week we had a total contingency program request of $42,505, and we recommend an allocation of $12,753 for no USAC entities and 41 non-USAC entities. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and I've also pasted that in the chat.
Get someone motion to get those approved, have you?
I move to approve the recommended contingency programming allocation of $12,753 to 41 non-USAC entities.
Second.
Have motions, Robbie seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With an 11-0 vote, that is approved. We're going to move on to SFS with Carolyn.
This week, for SFS, we recommend an allocation of $4,645.97 to 5 applicants, 1 USAC entity, and that's like 1 USAC entity and 4 non-USAC entities. I'll put that in the chat.
Are there any objections to the allocation? Seeing none, we're going to move on to BAG with Javi.
Hi, everyone. All right, so to cap off Winter Cycle 2, we recommend an allocation of $7,000 to 9 non-USAC entities. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or any objections? Seeing none, we're going to move on to ASRF with Chris Espino and AAC Travel Mini Grant Fund. You can do them at the same time.
Thanks, Adam. Okay, pasting it in the chat, and for the wording, we recommend an allocation of $880 with 65 cents to 2 non-USAC entities for the Travel Grant Mini Fund, and we recommend an allocation of $1,742 to 3 non-USAC entities for the Academic Success Referendum Fund. Paste it in the chat.
Are there any objections to those allocations? Does anyone have the because given there's no objections, those pass. Does anyone have any of the numbers for TGIF by any chance? It's okay, it doesn't matter. Next we have CS Mini Fund, Lorelai.
I don't believe there's any CS Mini Fund for this week.
Okay, CS Transpo.
For CS Transpo, we recommend an allocation of $56,151.70 to 29 entities, 5 of which are USAC entities and 25 non-USAC entities. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any objections to the allocation? Seeing none, those are approved, and we're going to move straight through to appointments. We have our e-board finance chair, Mason. Just a reminder, Mason, if you haven't done this before, you're going to start off with a 1-minute opening statement, followed by a 15-minute question and answer period by council, capping it off with a 1-minute closing statement. After that, we'll hear ARC's recommendations, have council deliberations, and then we'll take a vote. With that being said, whenever you're ready, please go ahead with your 1-minute opening.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Mason Valentine. I'm a second. Oh, right. Sorry. Hi, everyone. My name is Mason Valentine. I'm a second-year business economics major. And yeah, today I am hoping to be appointed as the finance chair of the elections board. I believe that I'll be a good fit because of my passion for the political and election system that you guys have in place here. And I thought it'll be a great opportunity to, really make an impact on the community and make sure that my work is being felt. And yeah, I thought it was a good opportunity to go ahead and do that. And last year I did work with Darian, the previous finance chair, and I believe that was a great opportunity to get introduced to the principles that their job requires, such as the great attention to detail, handling financial information and communicating with candidates, And I believe that my other current job as a legal assistant also lends itself to that because I am pretty used to handling people's information and communicating with clients, communicating with team members to make sure the job's being done. So that's why I think I'd be a good fit for the finance chair position. And yeah, hopefully I can work in that position in the future.
Thank you, Mason. We're now going to move on to the 15-minute question and answer period. Do any council members have any questions? Nico.
Hi, Mason. How do you plan to make the election cycle financially equitable for all candidates?
Well, I think that's a good question. I think it's just a matter of making sure that communication is really open and equal for everyone. And I think that requires diligence and the onus is on me to make sure that I can go ahead and communicate with everyone properly and necessarily. And so that means giving no candidate preferential treatment. That means doing your job just as well as you can to make sure that all spending is accounted for and making sure that all the financial reporting is in order. And I think that contributes to an equitable system because if you treat everyone equally and if you put in the work yourself to make sure that the system runs as smoothly as possible, I think that leaves as little holes as possible. That leaves as little holes as possible to make sure that the system is in fact equitable and everyone gets a fair opportunity to participate in this election cycle.
Javi, followed by Kiara.
Hey, yeah, so based on your work with elections board last year, well, I guess, hopefully you're specific to, the finance aspect of it, but if there's any sort of changes you would like to implement for this next year's elections board, should you be appointed to be finance chair, excuse me, what type of changes and implementations would you put in?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the work that me and Darian last year, I am proud of it because I think we had a good sort of communication between each other and we're pretty on it to make sure that everything got done. However, I will say I would like to see a bit more communication between the elections board members and the election board as a whole and USAC. And I think a more constant communication and a more streamlined communication system would prevent problems like the missing funds that we saw last year. And I think that would be one thing that hopefully I'm looking forward to implement in the future because, again, I really do value the communication and the importance of fostering relationships between USAC and elections board and within the elections board as well to make sure that all the work gets done and make sure that no stone's left unturned. So, yeah, I think communication would be the one big thing.
Hi there.
Hi.
Thanks for coming tonight. You did just talk about this. My question was going to be what type of growth and improvement do you see within, excuse me, your position and also the whole elections board process? And so feel free to expand upon anything that you've previously said or based on your experience.
Yeah, I think the one thing I did mention communication. I think that's the one thing that I'd like to focus on. And I also think that hopefully I could get some staffers and make sure that that system runs properly and I can foster a system that makes the finance division of the elections board feel like a really tight-knit and collaborative sort of space where everyone can work on one task getting done or multiple tasks getting done for that matter. And yeah, I think everything just boils down to collaboration and openness and being transparent about the work. Like, I don't want to be that person where I just say I accept the job and then just, leave out of nowhere and not get things done. I want to always make sure that I check in with USAC elections board or whatever authorities I need to report to or collaborate with or peers for that matter. So yeah, I think openness, transparency, collaboration, and communication are all things I'd like to work on this election cycle.
Any other questions? Nico.
As for finance policies, I know that there were some changes last year that were incorporated. So I was wondering, with those policies in mind, are there any new policies you'd like to implement, or would you like to maybe get rid of any, or anything to do with that realm?
I honestly, I didn't see too many problems with the policies themselves last year. I do think obviously the $500 limit seems pretty reasonable to me for each candidate, and the sources from which you get them from, I do believe they need to be reported. I think all of that is in good order, and it's just a matter of making sure that those things are checked up on. I think it's more of a matter of implementing the policy rather than a matter of changing the policy. So unless I do see fit in the future, I would honestly advocate for the continuation of these policies, these financial policies.
Any final questions? Seeing none, whenever you're ready, please go ahead with your 1-minute closing statements.
Great. So yeah, just to reiterate a couple of my points, I do think my attention to detail and my passion for the work that we do here, I think that would make me an optimal fit for the job. I believe that whenever I communicate with people, whether it's for my current job as a legal assistant or my past work as a finance staffer under the previous finance chair, I think that my attention to detail, my openness and my honesty, and my eagerness to make sure everything's being done at a proper pace and with a proper amount of detail, I think all of those things lend themselves to making me a good candidate for this job. And yeah, I think the combination of this passion and experience do make me, again, a good fit. And hopefully I want to make things get done around here, hopefully. And yeah, I think that combination does lend itself to me being a good fit for this job. And yeah.
Thank you. With that being said, could we please hear ARC's recommendations?
Yep.
Mason presented an excellent interview with ARC. ARC was impressed with Mason's experience serving on the finance committee on the e-board last year. ARC was excited to see some of Mason's goals to ensure that all candidates receive reimbursements within a timely manner and can have their financial needs addressed efficiently during election season. With a 3-0 vote, ARC highly recommends Mason for this appointment.
Thank you. We're now going to move into council member deliberations. Do any council members have any comments or concerns about the applicants? Javi?
Yeah, just a really quick comment. Thank you so much, Mason, for really also just putting a big emphasis on the equity aspect of the finances for elections board. I know running last year, especially as a low-income student, it was incredibly stressful to go through the entire payment process and everything. I'm really glad that you have the attention to detail to put more emphasis on that. And I really hope to see amazing work should you be appointed. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments or concerns? If none, can we please get a motion? Kiara.
Oh, thanks. Okay, I motion to approve Mason Valentine for the Elections Board Finance Director appointment.
Second.
Kiara motions, Robbie seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With an 11-0 vote, Mason is appointed to the finance committee or to the finance position of the e-board. Thank you so much, Mason.
Thanks, everyone.
We're now going to move on to officer reports. I'm going to keep mine pretty short, mostly written. But we started Olympic subcommittee preps, and Kiara and I interviewed applicants for the executive director of undergrad admissions. Josh.
Super quickly, just want to highlight our housing fair that happened on January 30th. It was much better than last year. I think we had between 600 and 700 attendees. We actually had someone sign their lease at the beginning of the housing fair, which was kind of crazy. Yes, and I think we also made around $10,000. Half of that is going to IVP for our housing rent relief fund in the spring, which is super exciting. And thank you to all the council members that came as well. And then I just also want to highlight that CAB is doing a networking night on February 24th. We have a bunch of admin and student org leaders coming, and I saw that some of the USAC officers already signed up. If you haven't yet, please sign up. It's going to be February 24th, Monday at 6:30 p.m. in the Kirchhoff Grand Salon. Please come so you can talk to different administrators as well as student org leaders, and we can all get to know each other a little bit better.
Thank you. Javi.
Hello, hello. Okay, all right. Unfortunately, in the spirit of things, I'm not going to keep things short because a lot has been happening. I haven't been here for 2 weeks. The main thing I really want to emphasize is actually a community resource. So the UCLA LGBTQ Campus Resource Center is going to be holding a winter community gathering this Thursday with a legal name change clinic in partnership with Student Legal Services. So if you or anyone that you know is interested in potentially being advised on the legal name change process or want help navigating, important documents in regards to your gender identity, or really just want to just be in community with other queer and trans folk, really recommend coming by. For more information, including the times, please see the original post that's linked on my officer report or go to their Instagram account at UCLA LGBTQ. And then moving on with that, just going to be jumping around. Last Tuesday, I was able to attend the UC Budget Lobby Day with the UC Students Association, where we met with 9 different legislators, including assembly members and different senators, including some of our very local ones. So Assembly Members Spur, Soleche, Calosa, and Elwari. And we were able to advocate for a number of student-specific needs, including Cal Grant reform to expand access to non-traditional students, including students with dependents, ongoing funding for disability service providers like CAE to support full-time professional staffers. Also, emergency grants and basic need resources for undocumented student basic needs. We're also very happy to champion Senate Bill 98, which is the Sending Alerts to Families in Education Act, or SAFE, being championed right now by Senator Sasha Rene Perez from Alhambra. It's a bill sort of regarding like creating an emergency alert system for college campuses like UCLA in the case that ICE or California Border Patrol finds themselves on our campuses. So this bill was actually written up by a student, and we're really happy to see it being picked up so quickly. And we're actually looking for an author for another bill written by someone from UCLA, actually, regarding mandating police accountability boards at the community colleges, the Cal State universities, and also making it a recommendation for the UC because of constitutional autonomy, with the power to vote, advise, and determine on different aspects of policing and campus safety. Also moving along, this past weekend, we were able to attend the annual Students of Color Conference in UC Berkeley with a delegation of 35, including some council members here, which is amazing. Lovely. Majority of them were actually outside student government spaces, and we had an amazing keynote speaker with Palestinian activist and poet Linda Sarsour, along with other speakers, including leaders from the Black Panther movement, Oda Watani, and All of Us Are None. We were also able to connect again with our student regions regarding their campus visit on March 4th. They're currently working with Orlando Luna from Seoul, and we're going to be reaching out to him to get the word out to students regarding that visit, and also trying to figure out which specific affinity groups should be prioritized for the event that they're going to be having with students. And then I think beyond that, the other thing I just want to highlight, we're currently in the process of working with the African Student Union and UCSA's Black Student Success Officer to author 3 different resolutions in support of Black student success, access, and retention. These would be centered around the renaming of Campbell Hall in honor of Bunchy Carter and John Huggins in light of the anniversary of their memorial that's going to be happening on February 20th with the Academic Advancement Program, a system-wide anti-Blackness training, development, and implementation, as well as support for access and retention programs with potential for broader support from the Campus Retention Committee. And then in regards to upcoming, this is going to be the last part that I comment on. The rest of it will be written. But the California Undocumented Higher Education Coalition meeting with the UC Students Association is going to be happening this Friday, which I will be attending, as well as the all USAC meeting with AVC Michael Beck. And then last but not least, February's Board of Directors meeting, which is on Valentine's Day weekend. I'm not a fan of that. But yeah, the rest of my report will be written. If y'all have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Javier. We are going to move on to Tommy.
I just want to announce that we have the GR2s hosting with SLAP, the Student Worker Town Hall, which is going to be taking place on Thursday this week in Mathematical Sciences Building Room 4000A. So please tell all your fellow student workers to show out, and then all other updates will be written.
Thank you, Chris Espino.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that it's not sort of anyway, all my reports will be written today.
Thank you, Robbie.
2 quick things. We have a screening on Thursday for the movie Parthenope at 8:30 in JBT. Come out, it's going to be awesome. And then also just a bit of news that's been very exciting for CEC and CAC. Dochi is now a Grammy winner. So very, very exciting stuff. Everything else is written though.
Thank you, Carden.
I'll keep my report written today.
Alicia.
I'll keep the rest written, but this week we have a rap and beat making workshop for Hip Hop Congress workshop this year. It's gonna be on Thursday from 5:30 to like 8 in the Kirkhoff Art Gallery, and the guest Producer for that will be Ben Martinarty. He's produced for No Name, Doja Cat, and many more. And then he's going to be making a beat right then and there with students. So that's going to be really exciting. Next week, we're going to have the Tulips come perform for a Valentine's Day concert. It's going to be really cute from 6 to 8 at the art gallery as well. From on February 11th, our art series is going to be doing some art workshops, and our concerts is obviously hosting the Tulips. We also have open Teeny Desk auditions. Please apply. And yeah, whoever went to the kickoff event for Hip Hop Congress last week, I hope you had fun. And that's all for me.
Thank you. We're gonna move on to Nico.
Our sustainable free laundry products are going in the ORLs are going to be launching on Monday. So if you want free sustainable laundry products, pull up to your nearest ORL on the Hill. University Apartments coming soon.
Kiara.
Pretty much all written. Oh my God. Pretty much all written for me tonight. I just under events. I just have a bunch of dates coming up in the next month or two. So keep an eye out for those events from the commission, the committees.
Thank you, Mano.
I'll keep my report written this week.
Tamim. We're gonna move on to admin reps, starting with Orlando, who's online, I believe. Orlando, any comments? Jessica.
Hello?
Oh,
Hello?
we can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear me now? Okay, sorry about that. Hope everyone's doing well. I interrupted. I don't have any updates, so we can move on.
Thank you, Jessica.
No updates from me tonight.
Thank you. Is Lori with us?
I have Lori's update.
Okay.
Lori's working the basketball game tonight and had to go. But her update is that spring reservation requests for recreation open on March 3rd. March 3rd.
Peter, any updates?
Nothing on my end.
Jonathan.
Hey, hi, hello. Just a couple quick things from me. I dropped it in the Slack, but the SGS policy doc is live on your website now on the SGS page, which is under About. More will come on that page soon, but that is there for now. Lorelei sent out to all of you and to all of your funding chairs a survey from SGA. They're trying to understand, they've got a bunch of resources and forms on the website, essentially, including like things like your budget reports. They're trying to figure out how that can be more accessible and easy for you all to understand and utilize. So if you all can fill that out, as well as share it with, you can share it with your staff, you can share it with student org, share it with anyone that encounters SGA, the more the better. And that is due a week from today. So I believe that's the 11th. And then lastly, a couple of you all should have gotten an email from our student staff if there was an issue with your written document for your written reports. As you may know, as you should know, we copy your reports every week so that we can put it in your transition folder so that we can give it to the next person to look at, essentially. And some of them either hadn't been filled out the last couple of weeks or were having some access problems. So if that was you, please give them a response. Other than that, have a great week.
Thank you, Jonathan. We're going to move into Carolyn's bylaw change. If there aren't any changes or if no one has any questions, I think we should just vote on them. Vote on it, sorry. If someone could motion. Kira.
I motion to approve the Article 7 bylaw change for GCGP under the Community Service Commission.
I second. Kiara motions, Tamim seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 12 to 0 to 0 vote, that bylaw change is approved. We're going to move into the United Afghan Club USA BOD Fund appeal. But before we do that, Nico, could you just give some context?
Yeah, is United Afghan Club here?
Let me check it through.
Because I have like.
Yeah, wait, there's someone that raised their hand, Josh.
Hi, yes. I'm Sial, the Sial Sharifzad, the president of the United African Club.
Okay. Well, nice to meet you guys virtually. I have like a little bit to say just to give kind of background on the USA BOD fund and then some information on some of like the internal policies we have to use that are UC wide. So first of all, thank you, United Afghan Club, for coming out tonight and bringing this to our attention. And then I just took a few notes to kind of explain the situation. My name is Nico Maroney. I'm the Financial Supports Commissioner. Me and Carolyn, the Community Service Commissioner, sit on the Budget Review Committee, and then it is chaired by Mafuri Isha, the Budget Review Director, who I believe you may have been in communication with. So this statement's kind of on behalf of the Budget Review Committee as a whole, and then mostly though Mafrua and I wrote this. So in the beginning of the year for BOD, we were introduced to a UC policy called PCAOS 80 that states that the funding originating from student fees must be used to prioritize the benefit of current UCLA students, which is a UC-wide policy that all funding bodies have to abide by, and something that we've been kind of taking very seriously since all of the BOD funding comes straight from student fees. We want to make sure it's going back to the students who are paying such fees. And in conjunction with PCAOS 80, our funding guidelines state that the BRC may approve requests for food only if they are intended for non-UCLA guests. So this kind of creates a gray area for food. And for context, the appeal in question was for $4,000 in food. So with PCAOS 80 saying that the money has to go towards UCLA students, and then our funding guidelines saying food can only be purchased for non-UCLA guests, it kind of creates this like gray area in the guidelines in PCAOS 80 of what food can be funded, which leads us to prioritize food at like the very bottom. So I have a few numbers to throw out just for transparency. So the USA BOD fund allocated for the winter quarter $63,000 to 37 student orgs out of a total request of 215,000. So we only are able to fund about 30% of the funds requested from us, and we also had 70 applications. So we only have an approval rate of about like a little bit more than 50%. And then for food, we've only allocated $8,000 for food. So food made up less than 13% of our total allocation. So sorry, that got really loud. So when we received the $4,000 request for food for non-UCLA guests, we put it very, very low on our priority list because once again, PCAOS 80 tells us we have to prioritize UCLA students. And then also as a board, we just did not prioritize food at all because we had so many other allocations. So that since it was low on the priority list when we went through all the other funding allocations, and since we had $215,000 requested of us and we only had $63,000 to allocate, it just ended up not being in the numbers for this funding application to receive funding, which led to its rejection. So that's like the context behind. Sorry, that was kind of a lot, and I'm happy to talk more about it, but there's just a lot of guidelines to get through. So anyway, that's the context behind like why this decision was made.
Sia, go ahead. Sia, you can go ahead.
Hi, yes, so sorry. It was giving us like a problem. In terms of our appeal, the reason why I submitted it was because the reason that was listed on a rejection didn't necessarily have to do with anything regarding the food allocation specifically. So as far as I was aware, the reason that the rejection was given was for the as Nico mentioned, the UCLA external guests policy, I guess. Right. So basically, in the appeal, as the main thing that we just listed was like in terms of like the question itself, I believe our funding person had a misunderstanding, as I mentioned last time I was in open comment. It was kind of like on the question it asked what's the target populations, and we listed UCLA undergrads as the target population for the event because the primary attendance for the event will be from UCLA undergraduate students. And then that's why it was listed as a target population. So that was what I wish to clarify. it wasn't that it was exclusive. The food was not exclusively for UCLA students. And I also wanted to thank Nico for clarifying with the gray area because that it did get a little bit confusing there. But yeah, so basically what we were trying to say was, as like if we look to the other answers that we provided on the application originally when we submitted it, it doesn't like explicitly state whatsoever that it is exclusive to UCLA undergrads, and it focuses. Actually, in the answer itself, it says that it is open to the community because this is also a program we did last year, and we had the BOD fund for it. And as in general, like the United African Clubs events are open to the broader community in Southern California. So that was like the reason. That was basically our reasoning behind the appeal. I do want to thank you for letting me know about the food thing. I just also wanted to ask the question because I'm not sure how the allocations work for other orgs, but I do know that because I've been in contact with several other organizations who also applied for similar programs. And I believe they did receive their full allocations for food. However, like again, I don't know the exact numbers and I don't want to throw any numbers out there. I just wanted to also appeal that even if we are not able to fund for the full amount, if we could get some money, it would help the program greatly, just because there is like an expected attendance of more than 200 people that are going to come, as far as we are aware. So yeah, that's basically the details behind our appeal, I guess. If you guys have any other questions, like I would do my best to answer them.
Yeah, go ahead, Nico.
As for other student orgs, as I noted before, we only funded of our like total allocation, less than 13% went to food. So it is true that some orgs receive food, but we weren't able to fund any student org their full like requested funding. The max we were able to fund was $3,000 for one org, and they applied for 5,000. So it just kind of came down to the numbers this year with like what we could fund and what we couldn't. But the reason like PACAO's 80 hasn't really been added to the guidelines yet is because we're still trying to figure out where it fits in our guidelines, because it was something we were that was like brought to our attention before our budget review director was hired. So I didn't like when me and Caroline and Alex were like redoing the guidelines, we didn't want to make too many changes because it wasn't our like place to make changes in our opinion, since we didn't have the budget review director. But now that we've like fully onboarded Mafrua, we're gonna work more on like making our guidelines much more, I think, like black and white and straightforward when it comes to PACAO's 80 and how it fits in with our guidelines. But the reason like food is such a hard take is just because PACAO's 80 says that like we have to prioritize food, or if we have to prioritize funds for UCLA students. So that's the problem with like food, since the food like can't also be for UCLA students. Sorry, I sound like a broken record. Saying food, but for like your appeal, if you have any, I don't know if we're allowed to like change funding applications right now, but if there's something we can fund that's not food, I think that would be better for our guidelines to like setting a precedent going forward. But I'm not sure like SGS, like if we're allowed to like fund something right now that's not in the category they applied for. Okay. Okay.
Microphone, please. Please. Thank you.
Is your question that you amend the allocation to a different line item?
Yeah, if that would work, because we can't fund food under our guidelines. Like it's just like in this situation, it does not agree with our guidelines. But since this is like a relevant event that matches our guidelines, if we could fund for a different line item to be able to like match this appeal in some form.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're going to do that in terms of like essentially you would be granting the appeal, then I think within that context, it should be okay.
Okay.
As long as the amended line item is still within the purview of BOD guidelines. And if council votes on it, I feel like that's an appropriate way to move it forward.
Okay. Because yeah, as of like right now, the $4,000 in food is just like a direct no, but like I don't want to just say like directly no.
Nico, could we potentially set up a meeting between UAC and BRD?
Yeah, and then revisit this next week.
Yes.
Yeah, would that work for the student org?
Yes, that would be good. And also like in that same sense, if you guys require us to like, because we have a budget sheet going for it, so if you guys require us to submit more documentation for other line items specifically, that would also like be something I can do, but yeah, again, it would probably take time because I don't have it on me right now. But that would be good if we could set that meeting up. But also, sorry, I just had a general question because moving forward, we have our biggest event of the year like in next quarter. So moving forward, BOD is strictly food is only funded for strictly non-UCLA attendees.
Yes, and then that does create the gray area with Macau's 80, which is why like food is just it's like very far on our priority list. I think your other application received $100 for food, and it was kind of like a good example where we fund food in the situations where it's like super cheap and also not the main like center of the like the only thing applied. Like you applied I think for $900 in supplies and then $100 for food in your other application,
Yes.
which got approved because food was like only 10% of the total allocation, so it wasn't like the main focus, but in this application, food was 100% of the focus, which is why it wasn't like high on the priority list for when we were looking over applications.
Got you. Okay, that just helps me clarify because yeah, last year we had a similar event, and it was like 500 external guests, which was a lot. So like food was higher up. So I was a little concerned about like trying to fund that this year. But thank you for the clarification. I really appreciate it. And
Yeah,
if
of
we could
course.
set up meeting up, that would be really good.
Yeah, I can put my email in the chat, or actually, Caroline, can I say it?
Is it just FSC at USAC?
Yeah, fsc@usac.ucla.edu.
It should be on our website as well.
Yes.
So if
I
you'd
got
reach
you.
out, we could set that up.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we move on, I would be calling a recess of 15 minutes so that people can go over all the resolutions and come up with any questions they have about the resolutions. We will resume at 8:15 p.m. Yep.
Will you ask for objection?
Are there any objections? Seeing none, we go into recess.
And a side note, for the fall allocations, do you know when we might find out about how much like rollover we get for like you know what I'm saying, right? With like the codes. Yeah. Okay. Like, do you think it would be before the next allocation period? I think they could be slow too. That's pretty cool. Okay. And then we use that funds for bring allocation. Okay, sounds good. Does that not go to surplus? Second. Or no, I'm sorry. Okay. Love it for us. Okay. Mhm. Okay. Okay. Oh, spring working a nice one then.
Yes. And then of course, that's part of your bio.
Okay. And when you say like that would be like a USAC vote and surplus, though, right?
Yeah, like a.
That's,
Okay.
yeah. I don't think that would.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll get the
Yeah.
bump of 150 in the bylaws and then whatever the rollover is. Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, because we were trying to budget because we know spring BOD gets busy with like people wanting to do end of quarter celebrations. Oh, it's spring. Okay. Yeah, sorry, spring. That's right. Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, we can cross that. Sounds good. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. All good though. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, we will resume session right now, starting with a resolution calling for UCLA to become a sanctuary campus with Alicia. Alicia, feel free to read through it or summarize it.
I'll go ahead and read through it. Okay, so this is a resolution calling for UCLA to become a sanctuary campus. Whereas undocumented students, deferred action for childhood arrivals, DACA recipients, and other immigrant community members face heightened threats due to shifting federal and state immigration policies. And whereas in 2003, the Department of Homeland Security was established as an administrative department responsible for agencies such as the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and U.S. Coast Guard. And whereas federal immigration and customs enforcement, ICE, policies and enforcement actions have created an atmosphere of fear and insecurity among immigrant communities, hindering students' academic success and well-being. And whereas the University of California system has previously demonstrated its commitment to supporting undocumented students through initiatives such as the UC Immigrant Legal Services Center and financial aid eligibility for AB 540 students. And whereas California Senate Bill 54 SB 54, also known as the California Values Act, limits state and local law enforcement cooperation with federal immigration authorities, reinforcing the need for UCLA to adopt policies that further protect its undocumented students and prevent collaboration with ICE. And whereas the University of California Office of the President has not prioritized any meeting dates, whether arbitrary or specific, with UC students, student organizations, student governments, elected officials of the USAC or UCSA to begin dialogues about the issues of California's public educational system. And whereas the amount of undocumented students in higher education is 86,805 and over 14,000 undocumented high school graduates every year. And whereas several universities across the United States, including institutions within the UC system, have adopted sanctuary campus policies to safeguard their students from immigration enforcement on campus. And whereas an open letter to faculty and staff and students of the California State University, CSU, reaffirmed the system's commitment to protecting undocumented students by stating that CSU will not enter into agreements with state or local law enforcement agencies, Homeland Security, or any other federal department for the enforcement of federal immigration law, that university police departments will not honor immigration hold requests, and that university police do not contact, detain, question, or arrest individuals solely on the basis of being or being suspected of being undocumented. Therefore, let it be resolved that the Undergraduate Students Association Council, USAC, formally calls on UCLA to adopt and implement policies that designate the university as a sanctuary campus, including but not limited to: 1. No complicity, no collaboration. University of California and its police departments will not comply nor be placed under the supervision of the federal immigration agencies and authorities regarding investigations, raids, detentions, and/or deportations unless mandated by a judicial warrant, a subpoena, or a court order. UCLA will establish and enforce policies that prohibit immigration enforcement and deportation activities on grounds and premises under UCLA jurisdiction. 2. Guarantee privacy, refuse to disclose information regarding immigration status or work authorization, and end surveillance of students, staff, and community activists on campus. 3. Expand work authorization provisions, apply AFSCME 3299 immigrant rights provisions to all workers, and expand provisions to Social Security no match letters. Prohibit the use of e-verify. Or support international scholars and staff, state publicly and often your continual support for, sponsorship of, and willingness to take action to support international scholars and staff, especially given President-elect Trump's plans to eliminate visa programs, subject immigrants to extreme vetting, and restrict immigration from so-called terror-prone regions. 5. Protect and expand services, protect and expand counseling and legal services for undocumented students, staff, workers, and their families, international scholars and staff, and threatened groups including Muslim, LGBTQIA, Black, and undocumented community, as well as other students and staff of color. Institutionalized UCOP funding allocation for undocumented student support, currently renewable every 3 years based on performance. Establish a designated sacred space on campus for religious and spiritual practices, including to but not limited to implementing washing stations and bidets, as well as a space for chaplain services. 6. No excessive force. Prohibit use of all police and militarized forces, including UCPD, against student and/or worker protests, rallies, sit-ins, walkouts, strikes, or civil disobedience. Aggressively pursue justice and accountability in cases of excessive use of force against Black people and/or other people of color. 7. No criminalization. Limit the offenses that are subjected to arrest by UCPD. Limit the circumstances in which students, staff, and others are turned over to outside law enforcement. Ban the box and adopt more inclusive hiring practices. 8. No registries. Welcome refugees. Aggressively denounce and refuse to assist with a registry of Muslims or registry of any other protected class. Take immediate steps to welcome refugees from Syria and those fleeing from violence and insecurity in other countries. 9. Combat sexual violence. Increase resources for in-person consent education and sexual violence prevention with a specific emphasis on high-risk populations. Increase awareness of survivor support resources. Ensure survivor-centric approaches, including but not limited to direct adjudication and or alternative resolution processes. Remove repeat offenders. 10. Meet human needs. Guarantee housing and food assistance to all admitted students. Expand mental health, legal, and child care resources on campus. Halt tuition and fee hikes. Raise the student minimum wage to match the service worker minimum. Negotiate fair contracts with UC employees, and end the use of exploited contract workers. Reaffirm Title IX protections of transgender individuals' right to use the bathroom facilities that reflect their gender identity. 11. Ethical investments. Ensure that the university is not invested in corporations that profit from colonialism, occupation, violence, and racism committed by Israel and Palestine. These shelve products on campus belonging to corporations that profit from Israel's human rights abuses against Palestinians. Make a public statement or press release condemning Israeli apartheid, given that Palestinian students have a right to feel protected by the university. Aggressive enforcement. Number 12, aggressive enforcement. Aggressively enforce policies prohibiting hate and discrimination based on race, color, national origin, faith, sex, gender, gender expression, gender identity, pregnancy, differences in physical or mental ability, medical condition, ancestry, marital status, age, sexual orientation, citizenship, or any intersection of these factors. 13. Extensive training. Implement training programs that include but are not limited to UC sanctuary status provisions, and the reporting and investigation of incidents, and docu-ILI, de-escalation intervention techniques, and restorative justice. 14, right to a union, never interfere with workers' rights to join and maintain membership in their union, participate in their union, or have their employer deduct union dues on their behalf. And 15, demand a sanctuary city and state, call upon Mayor Bass, and Los Angeles City Hall to immediately enact extending sanctuary demand citywide, call upon Governor Gavin Newsom and the California State Legislature to immediately enact legislation extending these sanctuary demands statewide, file amicus briefs and anti-immigration laws or discriminatory executive orders. While we are encouraged by the initial step that the UC has taken in this direction, releasing principles in support of undocumented members of the UC community, these principles fail to include certain basic provisions within the university's purview to protect us and our communities. Major shortcomings include, but are not limited to, the fact that these principles fail to explicitly protect privacy of UC workers' immigration status or related information, commit to not use E-Verify, refuse to take adverse action, or request work authorization re-verification in response to SSA no-match letters or related communications, direct campus police to refuse ICE transfer or non-notification requests in addition to holds, refuse to let ICE interview individuals in campus police custody, refuse ICE physical access to property owned or controlled by the university, include all migrants regardless of criminal convictions, commit to protect and expand legal and counseling services for the undocumented community, initiate constant and consistent outreach to the undocumented community and actively involve and engage them in these conversations, explicitly include the LBNL and all other parts of the UC system, commit to maintain all protections irrespective of threats to federal funding, and provide transparency regarding the timeline and process for drafting and negotiating campus and medical center policies. Let it further be resolved that the UCLA Advisory Council on Immigration Policy Detainment Response Protocol version 2.0 should be utilized at any point when there is a detention. Quote, UCLA Detainment Response Protocol release, access, and intervene, and stress that a timely centralized campus response to a student detention may lead to a smoother and, more importantly, a timely release of the student. And let it be further resolved that the Undergraduate Student Association Council supports SB 98, the Sending Alerts to Families in Education SAFE Act, currently being championed by the UC Student Association and senator Sasha Renee Perez. This piece of legislation serves as a direct response to the xenophobic Trump administration and mandates schools and college campuses to immediately notify all students, parents, faculty, staff, and other community members if immigration officers are present on the premises, similar to early warning systems in place of emergency alerts. Let it further be resolved that the UCLA administration actively lobby state and federal legislators to support policies that protect undocumented students and advocate for a permanent legislative solution ensuring access to higher education for all students, regardless of immigration status. And let it finally be resolved that the Undergraduate Student Association Council will work alongside student organizations, faculty, and community partners to advocate for the implementation of sanctuary campus policies and ensure ongoing support for undocumented students at UCLA.
Thank you, Alicia. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the resolution? Seeing none, can we get a motion? Abby.
I move to approve a resolution calling for UCLA to become a sanctuary campus.
I second.
Heavy motions, Diego seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 12 to 0 vote, that is approved. We're going to move on to the next resolution, a resolution calling for the removal of all Coca-Cola licensed products on ASUCLA. Wanna feel free to read through it or explain it.
Okay, so I'll give an overview since we had a recess to read the resolutions. But essentially, the whereas clauses go over how the UC system as a whole became the one of the first public universities to sign on to the UN-supported principles of responsible investment, which is essentially an international network of investors committed to factoring environmental, social, and corporate governance issues into their investment decision-making process. And the following whereas clauses kind of go over some of the areas in which the Coca-Cola Company has made severe like violations in these areas, from causing environmental harm, labor rights, as well as corporate governance issues. Some of them include the extracting of water and causing water scarcity in various areas, plastic pollution, an illegal or a coke factory in an illegal Arat settlement industrial zone, and sourcing grapes in one of their subsidiaries from vineyards that is located on occupied land settlements, as well as a lot of other examples. And then some of the whereas clauses go over the reasons why these violations are violations, and why it's important for us to kind of uphold what we've passed before, as one of the whereas clauses kind of goes over a history of resolutions passed from various school years, including a resolution to divest from companies that violate Palestinian human rights in the 2013 to 2014 school year, a resolution in solidarity with the Palestinian community in 2021 to 2022 school year, as well as a few of the more recent ones, including the BDS resolution from last year and a couple from this year. And then also, in addition to that, the bylaws that were approved in June 2022, which kind of are in line with some of the resolutions passed. And ultimately, it's important for us to uphold the values that have been passed by this council and the previous councils as the voice of students. And so the resolved clauses or demand the ASUCLA Board of Directors to look at these various perpetuated violences in these areas as the plausible clause for the immediate termination of any contracts that ASUCLA has entered into with Coca-Cola, and another resolved clause that commits us to ensuring that the values that students have upheld through these USAC resolutions and bylaw changes are committed to through any action possible for us to take. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any council members have any questions? I have a few questions. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jessica. No, you go first. You go first. You go first.
So I'm just question and suggested friendly amendment. Because the Coca-Cola contract is an exclusive contract with UCLA, it's not specifically ASUCLA's contract. So one of my questions is, did you all consider rather amending this to say that UCLA would work to, obtain a different vendor for their beverage products? And then my second question, given that the Let It Be Resolved mentions the Board of Directors, did you all meet or discuss this with any of your undergrad board representatives when drafting this resolution?
Can I respond?
Yeah.
Okay. For the first suggestion, thank you. I'm open to amending it if I can amend it right now.
Yeah.
For the second one, not yet, but my plan would be that if this passes, to reach out to the undergraduate representatives who I have the contacts of and see if we can set up a meeting to have this go further to hopefully see it implemented. The intention with the ASUCLA specific was that as USAC, we have a closer relation to them than UCLA, but very open to changing on the first one.
Awesome. And definitely let us know if we can help calendar those meetings for you all. And I would also just say best practice for future resolutions, if there are provisions that directly relate to ASUCLA, to have those conversations beforehand so that you can get the correct information, because specifically with this contract, it's not ASUCLA's contract. So, to call on ASUCLA to terminate a contract is not really realistic, because it's the university's contract, and the the details of the contract, it is exclusive. So there aren't, any other beverage competitors that can be on campus or sold on campus because of that. So it just makes it a little tough to be able to take the resolution a step further and have action done.
My first question was the same. I thought that ASUCLA was in contract with Coca-Cola, so I was confused. My second question is more of a general question. What prompted this being brought up now?
Can you repeat the second question?
What prompted this resolution coming up now? Was there any changes to Coca-Cola or any action that has done that prompted this coming up, or was it just out of the blue?
I think that's a great question. There's several things. One of them being an article I read last year, which is cited in one of the whereas clauses. Let me pull it up really quickly. Okay, one of them, sorry, it took me a second, is this article regarding workers' rights issues in some of the sugarcane fields. And this article came out relatively recently in 2024, and it kind of went over how women workers would get hysterectomy. I don't know how to pronounce this word. So my apologies on that, but essentially like they would get a surgery done to avoid menstrual issues impacting them while working because of the long hours they would be working in the sugarcane fields and a couple of other labor issues in that specific state in India. And one part of the article that really stood out to me is that an executive at NSL Sugars, which is a Coca-Cola supplier that has mills in the country, noted that while soda company representatives would be very detail-oriented about questions regarding sugar quality that they were receiving, labor issues would not come up as frequently. So this was one article I read that pushed me to do this. And then in addition to this, the BDS resolution from last year and the BDS bylaw change from our term, but in June of 2024, also was an impact in this, especially considering that also pretty recently, the BDS official movement pushed up the boycott of Coca-Cola. And so looking into both of these areas were some of the things that pushed me to bring this up. But ultimately, I think it's important for us to look into these things and consider the products that we're pushing towards our students.
Correct me if I misheard you, but you said you had the article last year?
Last year, as in late 2024.
So you're intending on writing this when you read that and it just came up now?
While I was intending to write it, due to several factors, which some of them are personal and I don't want to go into them on public record, I was unfortunately delayed in writing this until pretty recently.
Okay, follow-up question. There's a lot of companies, including Disney and Google, that ASUCLA and UCLA directly deals with, that are way bigger targets, both by the BDS and by other boycott movements. Why did you choose to write about Coca-Cola and not those targets that are bigger and affected, usually more targeted by these movements and by the things that we have in our bylaws and resolution?
If you're interested in working with me on any of those other areas, I would love to have further conversations on them. It's not a pick and choose type of situation, but
you are picking and choosing. You pick and chose Coke.
Excuse me, Adam, I was actually in the middle of my sentence and what I was saying when you said that. I would appreciate if you can let me finish what I am saying before you respond. But it's not a picking and choosing type of thing. It's what knowledge I have and what I am able to work on. And just because I am able to bring this forward now does not mean that the various other areas that other companies are causing active harm in our world is not also a priority for me, and I dislike that implication.
Sorry, could you repeat the last thing I said? You said I didn't understand you. My bad.
I said that this resolution isn't a picking and choosing type of situation for me. It is something that I had the knowledge about because of the things that I knew and I was able to look into further, and that to implicate that it is a picking and choosing situation is an implication I dislike. If you want to know my exact words, you can rewatch the recording, but I'm not sure exactly which part you missed. So that's my general summary of that.
No, I don't think I missed any part. I was just inquiring. I was just curious. Does anyone have any other comments or questions about the resolution? Kara?
Thank you for going more into depth with it, Mona. What came to mind was potentially tabling this just for the purpose of, I know there were a few discussion items about it, because I do agree, I think it's important to, of course, take into consideration the ethical component of the companies that our university is partnering with and such. And so coming to mind to maybe motion to table this for tonight so that it is still a conversation, just maybe after maybe talking with the entities that Jessica mentioned. And I know there's the ASUCLA versus UCLA thing. And so that see if there's any additional information to gather while ensuring that it's still a continued conversation.
Alicia?
I would suggest not to table this mainly because Coca-Cola has been one of the main companies under BDS that the USAC has worked with. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's your office, Adam. And I also think that based on the past and learning from the past, when these things have been called out before, and when we have had the opportunity, as in USAC has had the opportunity to talk to UCLA about its investments and its partnerships, this is UCLA's money that we're dealing with. They're not letting that go. They're not letting their partnerships with Coca-Cola go. It is up to students to pressure UCLA to divest from partnering with these companies and these corporations. And that's pretty evident. You see that with the UC Divest campaign, like they're not divesting from genocide because it comes in between their money and it comes in between all the funding that they're getting from these corporations. So that's my 2 cents. I don't think this should be tabled.
For the record, before we move on, my office has never worked with Coca-Cola. It never entered into any contracts with Coca-Cola. There was an event that I had worked on that was sponsored by Coca-Cola, but my office has never entered into any contract or any official work with Coca-Cola. Have you?
Yeah, sort of adding on to what Alicia said, but also commenting back on what Kiara said and everything. I do agree that there should be, I guess, further clarification on what specific entities or bodies that USAC would be working with to talk about the cancellation of this deal with Coca-Cola, or this contract. Sorry, for the record, and everything. If I could suggest, is it possible to add a whatchamacallit clause stipulation right now that creates that change right now to suggest that the USAC will work with the relevant bodies of, for example, UCLA administration to do so, or would that not be possible in the moment?
Do SGS want to answer? I think hypothetically we could, yeah.
So let's just do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you can suggest friendly amendments to the resolution now if that's something you want to do and move forward with a vote, if you're not trying to table it. And then, also consider if there's any other statements as a council, like, are there any actions that you all want to take that you do have purview over in relation to this? That's not necessarily with the contract, but maybe just encouraging, groups to, not use Coca-Cola beverages for their events, and just trying to think more of how you all can have a more active role in it, because working on canceling a contract for the whole university is going to be really difficult. It's definitely something you can put in there, but
I mean, does anyone have any other suggestions or comments? If not, then I would like to. Oh, Chris Espino.
Yeah, thank you so much. I kind of just wanted to echo some of the sentiments that have already been in the space, Kiara and Javier. I think that we definitely should clear up the language. The ethical considerations that Mona introduced in the resolution are important, but I don't want to mislead folks. And I don't want to mislead them with with certain powers, because there's some suggestions of powers that we have that we don't have. And doing that would sort of encourage people to sort of unintentionally shift their focus in one area, even though it's sort of, I'm not going to say useless because no action is useless, but it's sort of counterintuitive in a sense. I just don't want to, I want to make sure that our actions don't mislead people, and also that the powers that we have as a USAC also don't mislead people.
Have you?
So in that case, can we just go through with what I just suggested and make that amendment? Oh, Mona wants to respond.
Mona?
Sorry, I didn't mean to be like I want to speak right now, but in terms of the amendment, I would be very open to it. To what you mentioned when you spoke earlier, if it would be possible to give time to write that clause, to move this agenda item to the second to last, perhaps. But I do appreciate the first suggestion brought up by Jessica, because and it is something that I made immediately as soon as I knew it was possible to do that right now. But in regards to what you just said, Chris, about the suggestions of our power, I'd like to know exactly which parts it is that you take issue with in terms of implications of our power that are not there, as the therefore clause or the therefore, or sorry, the resolve clauses are pretty concise, and I believe within our jurisdiction to ask or demand administration to terminate contracts that are in violation of resolutions that the council has passed, whether it's within our term or the previous terms and our bylaw changes, as well as the fact that, as mentioned in the first clause, these violations are violations of the principles for responsible investment, which is something the UC itself signed on to. So this resolution is asking the UC and UCLA specifically, since that's the group of undergraduate students that we represent, to follow through with the commitments they kind of made by joining that as a signatory. But yeah, I would love to know what exactly there is, so that we could also change that in a friendly amendment right now.
Jara?
Yeah, I just wanted to, going back to what Javier was saying with the potential amendment of discussing what that would look like specifically, I think would be great. I think that help with Claire. That was where I was coming from with the clarification and making sure those terms are correct with the entities that be working with, to making sure that, yeah, while we're addressing that on that larger scale, we're working with those groups that are involved so we get that language correct. So I think that amendment was a great suggestion.
Josh?
Just a suggestion, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm under the impression that ASUCLA is a separate entity than UCLA. So could we maybe add a clause about working with the board of directors to find alternative vendors in Coca-Cola and things like the UCLA store, like vending machines? No.
Yeah, because it's an exclusive, ASUCLA can't have alternative vendors to Coke. If they're in direct competition with Coke, legally we can't have that sold in the store. So,
or I meant ending contracts with Coca-Cola and finding more suitable replacements.
Are you suggesting that ASUCLA pursue that?
Yeah, it's what they did with Starbucks in the previous year, cutting ties with Coca-Cola and finding alternative vendors instead.
So that, they're two different situations. My understanding of the Starbucks vendor was that, it was a bigger contract for catering and food service. And Starbucks was just one of the companies that was within that. And because it's directly our food service, that's a different situation than this one with Coca-Cola, where it's a campus-wide exclusive contract. So yeah, I mean, I would recommend that if you want to include some language about that, it's definitely better to get that information offline and maybe bring it back next week. And this way you can get a lot more clarity on where ASUCLA has leverage and what it can do in related to that. So for sure your board members, your student board members, and then talking with food service as well to kind of understand that better. Yeah, but my understanding is that that's not something ASUCLA would be able to do because it's a campus contract.
Sorry, you were blocked, Carolyn. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just thinking, yeah, my overall thoughts, I definitely think this is a really important resolution. But I guess I'm just a little hesitant if now that there's all these like unknowns brought up as to like what is the best way we can approach it to like fully take action the most effective way. So I think whether that's like amending it right now and like quickly workshopping it now, which I think would be a great idea, or if like we do that and we're still like, having some clarification issues that we can't resolve right now online, then revisiting this immediately once we get that information. I think it's really important. I just want to make sure it's done in the best way. So open to the amendment, or like if we can't get a good amendment, then revisiting after meeting with stakeholders.
Nico?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Carolyn. UCLA admin are like notoriously hard to work with. So I think this is an important resolution, but to make sure that it's able to be effective, I think it's best if it's in near perfect condition, and workshopping it right now is like, as great as it is, I think it needs to, we need to workshop it to make sure it does reach that perfect condition with like the stuff SGA and SGS has brought up. Along with just like wording. So I think it might be best to revisit it next week just so we can take some time to make sure that we're going to UCLA admin with like our best work.
Any other thoughts? Bueno.
I'm open to tabling this. I'm not sure if we need to take a vote on that or not to table it, but
we do.
Just one last comment on this is that I will be hopefully reaching out to everyone who brought up suggestions or amendments, or just notes on the resolution. So hopefully keep an eye out for an email or Slack message from me.
Thank you, Mona. Have you?
Then in that case, then I move to motion this specific resolution calling for the removal of all Coca-Cola licensed products at the University of California, Los Angeles.
Sorry, can you clarify what that motion is? What
table?
Motion to table. Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
I second.
Have your motion, Stimmy seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 12 to 0 vote, that is tabled. We're going to move on to the next resolution. A resolution demanding the Fowler Museum, sorry, it's blocked on my screen, repatriate all stolen ancestors and belongings, and for UCLA administration to reinstate the NAGPRA Compliance Committee. Alicia?
Oh, Javi will present this one.
Tagging in. Okay, I'll try to be quick with this one. This is a short resolution, but a very meaningful one that I think everyone does need the context for, including the general public. But I'll start off with, whereas the Gabrielino Tongva people are the original caretakers of Tabangar, which encompasses the Los Angeles Basin and Southern Channel Islands, of which the University of California, Los Angeles campus occupies. And whereas Steve Lewis, UCLA American Indian Student Association, ASA, president from 1990, asked, quote, "How can you think of being a Bruin when your ancestors are being held as spiritual hostages by the university?" End quote. And whereas the 1960s saw an emergence of social justice activism, including the Native American Repatriation Movement, NARM, demanding the return of all Native ancestors and cultural objects stored in museums nationwide. As a result of NARM and the work of Native American and Indigenous activists, lawyers, students, and allies, the Federal Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, also known as NAGPRA, was passed in 1990. And whereas the language of the Federal NAGPRA Act states that it serves to, quote, resolve and restore the rights of Native American lineal descendants and tribes to human remains and cultural items, end quote. Whereas A California version of this law was enacted in 2001 to carry out the federal NAGPRA measures at the state level in collaboration with local California indigenous tribes. And whereas campuses across the University of California system, including UCLA, have been found to hold the human remains and artifacts of indigenous ancestors as a result of university archaeological excavations. And whereas since its founding, the UC has collected and stored native human remains. Some are well known, like the two 9,500-year-old Kumeyaay ancestors found in La Jolla, California, or the Ishi, or Ishi, the last wild Indian who was brought to San Francisco by UC Berkeley anthropologist Alfred Kroeber in 1911. After he died and without his or his family's consent, the UC sent his brain to the Smithsonian to further eugenics research. And whereas this is a UC-wide issue, UC Berkeley has the largest human remains collection of any NAGPRA-eligible museum with more than 9,000 individuals. Fewer than 300 individuals have been returned home. And whereas UCLA created a NAGPRA compliance committee in 1993 to oversee the compliance with state and federal NAGPRA laws that included multiple faculty, staff, and student representatives, as well as members of off-campus communities. And bear in mind that the information regarding this committee's membership and activity has not been updated through official UCLA NAGPRA page since 2021 and 2022 respectively. And whereas the University of California Students Association, UCSA, serves as a system-wide coalition of students and student governments with a continuing campaign centered around, quote, pursuing environmental justice initiatives within and across the University of California's campuses, affiliations, and surrounding communities, end quote, known as Students Enacting Environmental Defense, SEED. And whereas the 2024 to 2025 SEED campaign goal aims to have a minimum of 5 undergraduate students included in each UC campus's Native American Advisory Council. And whereas, although in the 1990s UCLA was home to, quote, pro-research and anti-repatriation professors like Gail Kennedy and Clement Megan, over a 20-year period, UCLA has been successful in pressuring to repatriate ancestors and belongings back to their communities. And whereas the ASA students held protests and walkouts to show the rejection to having native bones curated in Haynes Hall. On October 8, 1990, over 200 UCLA students and faculty protested UCLA's possession of native human remains and the celebration of Columbus Day, calling it a cruel celebration of genocide. Although it was the anthropology department, not the Fowler Museum, that excavated human remains in Haynes, Fowler Museum was assigned the task for compliance of NAGPRA. And as such, Deputy Director Duran Ross was asked to comment on this article. And whereas the continuing struggle between indigenous peoples, scientists, and museum professionals over control of deceased ancestors are critical in obtaining social justice, human rights, and native sovereignty. So therefore, let it be resolved that the Undergraduate Student Association Council, USAC, demands that the institution regards repatriation as not simply an ethical necessity for living in a progressive state, but also to mend relationships with tribes, initiate healing for tribal communities, create relationships for future collaboration on museum exhibits and events, evoke social justice and human rights, and finally, act as a cultural and legal sovereignty. And does more than just blanket acknowledgement of the land that we are on. Let it further be resolved that the USAC calls upon UCLA administration, specifically the Vice Chancellor for Research and Creative Activities, Roger Wakimoto, to reinstate the UCLA NAGPRA Compliance Committee housed under his office. Let it be further resolved that the USAC also calls upon the UCLA administration to create an official Native American Advisory Council housed under the Office of the Chancellor, committed to engaging in good faith collaboration with student organizations like the American Indian Students Association, ASA, and its components to properly serve the indigenous peoples that find themselves on our campuses and surrounding communities. And let further be resolved that we call on UCLA anthropology to stop being complicit in the colonial foundation of the field and perpetuating the silence that early scientists like Samuel Morton would have wanted, as they viewed native bodies as specimens to be studied for research based in eugenics that reinforces theories of white supremacy. And lastly, let it finally be resolved that the USAC recognizes the continuing struggle between the indigenous peoples, scientists, and museum professionals over control of deceased ancestors is critical in obtaining social justice, human rights, and native sovereignty, and ending white supremacist colonial systems of racism, exploitation, and eugenics, and that this struggle exists within our own campus. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions or comments about the resolution? Jessica.
Just a formatting comment. I think some of your footnotes are off.
That is probably
number
correct.
4 is missing, and then I think there is one that's numbered in the body.
Yeah, Google Docs has been acting weird as of late. I'll revise those, but aside from that, anything else?
Any other questions for Javier? Seeing none, could we get a motion? Tamim?
Motion to pass a resolution demanding the Fowler Museum repatriate all stolen ancestors and belongings and for UCLA administration to reinstate the NAGPRA Compliance Committee.
I second.
Tamim motions, Karen in seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 12-0 vote, that is approved. We are now going to move on to the final resolution titled the resolution against student conduct charges brought forth on students arrested in the pro-Palestine protests. We have Tommy.
Yeah, so it's basically, as it's read in the title, I'm just going to keep it short and sweet. We heard that presentation last week, and we've heard the voices of a lot of our students here who witnessed the violence that took place at the hands of law enforcement at the encampment, as well as Zionist agitators. And yet the university has continued to continue on with the process of charging students for their demonstration and peacefully calling for an end to the ongoing genocide in Gaza. So this is kind of just calling or taking a stance as the council to try and get those charges dropped and try to achieve justice for the students we represent here. So, yeah.
Any questions or comments about the resolution? Alicia?
Can I just move to?
Go ahead.
Okay. I move to approve a resolution against student conduct charges brought forth on our students arrested in the pro-Palestine protests.
I second.
Alicia motions, Chris Espino seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. He was louder, sorry. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 12-0 vote, that is approved. We are now going to move on to our final item of the night, titled Discussion on the Future of USAC. Before I start, I just want to mention that per the bylaws and the Robert's Rules of Orders, if at any time I cut anyone off, it's all meant to be me being rude. It's just part of the procedure where I can reclaim the time of the chair at any time. With that being said, I'll give Alicia the mic to talk about whatever Alicia wanted to talk about.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to have like a brief discussion today to just kind of recent.
Sorry?
My mic not.
Yeah, I think it's on.
Okay. Yeah, okay. That's better. Yeah, just like a really brief discussion on recentering USAC and like our role as student leaders within, I mean, specifically this bureaucracy that is council, and just talking about how to be more proactive in terms of addressing student issues, which is the main reason we brought forth some resolutions today. I apologize for not having, I apologize on not just my own behalf, but on the behalf of those who I worked on these resolutions with for not having these posted earlier. It's just been a really hectic time with midterms and everything, and these things are quite urgent, all of them, for different reasons, for the ways they impact our communities. And yeah, I just wanted to share something that guided me while I started my term a few years ago. Mike De La Rocha's letter to students titled "Where Do We Go From Here?" from the year 2000 is one of the main things that has guided me through my term. And it was one of the main things I got when I first transitioned into this role. And I wanted to share an excerpt today. Quote, "History has taught us that no concrete changes have happened on this campus without a mass movement involving students, faculty, labor, and community, not only questioning, but indeed challenging the university and society at large. Not only are these the times where you and I will constantly be challenged, but also a time where our work and love does indeed make a difference in the lives of many students. Our active participation on and off campus helps advance the struggle to truly make this a just and equitable world. Every step that we may take affects the process in one shape or form. And I will also be emailing the entirety of this letter to all of you after this meeting ends. But yeah, I just wanted to just talk about and hold space for things that we should just work on together, just here in person and on the record, to really create new projects across USAC to start supporting students, especially in lieu of, I mean, not in lieu, because of the Trump administration and all its attacks on some of the most vulnerable communities here. So I just wanted to open up the floor.
Any comments or thoughts? Yes, Tommy.
Yeah, I would just like to say I completely agree. I think in terms of coming into this new year, and kind of, as Alicia mentioned with the Trump administration, while our council has taken action, it's been a lot of in the heat of the moment work. And it's been, I guess, even just a learning opportunity for me, hopefully a learning opportunity for the entire council, that going forward, while we're going through these next 4 years, the stuff that has transpired in these past few weeks, while it is concerning, we're bound to have more concerning moments. So I guess, like Alicia said, I also agree that kind of challenging our council as a whole for the remainder of our terms of just trying to do as much as we can to be proactive and even just ahead of what is going on. I know the strength of this group has the ability to do a lot of amazing things. So I really want to see us put our collective energy towards accomplishing them. And yeah, just making sure that we have a more open line of communication, maybe more cross-office collabs. I don't know, but I think we just need to dream a bit bigger and look down the line from years from now, because who knows what's going to happen. So just making sure we leave this campus as strong as we possibly can.
Thank you, Tommy. Have you?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that, Tommy. But I think also just to kind of center us into the context of now, just the fact that this quarter alone has been so. I hate winter quarter, and I thought that this was finally going to be a normal one, and then we started off with wildfires, and the university taking very little action to actually protect students. And in the theme of Alicia talking about protecting our most vulnerable and everything, a lot of us, unfortunately, are minorities who have continuously not been sheltered by the university that claims to care so much. So I think also just acknowledging that as well, that at the end of the day, yeah, it is important that we all come together to try to influence change as much as possible as the elected officials of over 30,000 undergraduate students, but also remembering that at the end of the day, we are students and individuals ourselves, and we should be extended that grace of realizing that, hey, some of us are still not fully recovered from the events of the first 5 weeks of this quarter, and that is perfectly okay. But yeah, I think now more than ever, a lot of people are kind of looking towards the amount of access that we have to, for example, administrators, to different representative bodies like UC Office of the President, the UC Board of Regents, and just the amount of power that we do have in being able to be in these rooms where we're meeting with these people, where we're able to have a wealth of knowledge on a number of things that unfortunately a lot of students don't have access to. And being able to sort of help guide them into that space so that they can also effectively advocate for themselves when we cannot even advocate for ourselves as individuals. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents.
Thank you, Javi. Chris is Peter. Oh, sorry, your hand's down. Any other comments? Kiara?
Thanks. Thank you guys for what you've said so far. I want to echo a lot of the sentiments that were just said, and with so many different changes recently and new changes every single day that come up and are affecting so many different communities, especially with our campus having so many different populations and communities as well. Of course, echoing what Javi said about, making sure we're honoring that we are students and that balance, of course, and then also making, in our capacities and with the platform and the resources that we have, taking advantage of that to the extent that we can. Make sure we're continuously informed and educating one another, and as things may not be apparent about the effects on individuals that we not be aware of. So continuing, with that education and staying informed about how we can best serve the, students that we want to support across campus, and like marginalized communities and everyone affected by whatever changes keep going on every day. So yeah, I just want to echo that. And I mean, everything that's been said so far with, and the communication piece, and leaning on one another, engaging with one another about those discussions. How can we be effective collectively and use the really great amount of resources that we have in terms of ability to, with our initiatives and each of our office doing different things. So yeah, how we can be effective as a collective and individually, and continuing to engage with one another and engage with campus and engage with students and engage in other individuals and entities as well, to make the most informed decisions we can to see how we can be most effective, and and learn, if something's not effective, continue learning and take that forward into whatever we do next, and hopefully be even more effective the next time, and bring in more as we do it, and do it as a collective.
Thank you so much, Kara. Anyone else? Alicia?
Okay, if no one else wants to speak, I'd like to close off just by talking about just personally my office with its extensive cultural and political history on this campus, always prioritizing the safety and empowerment and platforming of Black, Indigenous, and students of color. And yeah, I am really proud of my work and the work of those before me, and then the work of a lot of USAC councils before us. And yeah, that none of my accomplishments and none of y'all's accomplishments would have been possible without the perseverance of the student leaders before us, especially through an ongoing pandemic and more. So I really encourage us to look back to even Jonathan Weisner's term, and just looking at previous resolutions that they were working on, because they were much more radical and quick with responding to student needs and community needs than we are. I'm quite frankly personally disappointed that some of these resolutions didn't make it on the agenda tonight, but I hope they do in the future. And yeah, I hope that your dedication and sacrifices throughout this year, are a tribute to not just, your story here, but those who have moved on from UCLA as well in the past. And that, personally for me, my own victories and accomplishments are also the ones of those who came before me. So yeah, through all the art and community spaces I've cultivated, and all the fights that I've fought, and all the things that I've learned, have really taught me how to express and act on resistance, how to survive and be in community through that. And so, yeah, after a long consideration for my own physical and digital safety, I've decided that the chapter of being commissioner of this organization has come to a close for me. But my life is forever altered by it, and I thank you for all the time that you sat on this council with me. So thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. I don't have many words, but in general, I just wanted to say thank you for, you're the longest tenured person here, and with good reason. You're obviously very good at your job. And although many of us, it's very hard for us to see eye to eye a lot of the time, I just wanted to thank you for your work over the past couple of years. And I'm opening the floor for anyone else that wants to give a comment. Tamim?
Yeah, Alicia, as Adam said, you have been here the longest, and you have fought on issues. You have taken the first step on many of the issues, and I really want to commend you on that. Many of the issues was like endangered your safety digitally and physically as well as mentally. And taking that first step really means a lot. So I really want to commend you on that. And I'm ever so grateful for you to be in this council. And I had the privilege of working with you.
Any final comments from anyone? If none, I adjourn this meeting at 9:13 p.m. Thank you.